The media blurb called it a sacred annual gathering of high-calibre wave warriors. Well, the Warriors didn't have a lot to do battle with today. The foe, a messy 1 metre swell, a stark contrast to yesterday, but you can thank the nor'easter for that. It was a competition thick with names, but early in the day, round 3 diluted it a little, 4 of the 8 seeds coming unstuck and dropping out of the running. So Allura's Troy Dennehy grasped the nettle. He milked the waves all the way to victory in the Opens final. Justin Cook from Queenscliff came second. The competition's success story, Newcastle's Mark Yesbrick. The 19-year-old stole 3rd place in his first competition. World Junior Amateur champ Chet Edser was 5th.
Today, his many friends, relatives and colleagues gathered at the Sacred Heart Church at Hamilton to pay their last respects. It was the same church Alderman Geddes and his wife Maria were married in 19 years ago. Loudspeakers brought the service to those crowded outside the church. Inside, Reverend John Abbott spoke of a man who was known and liked by so many, who had dedicated his time and talents to helping others. Don Geddes first became an alderman of the city in 1977. His friend and colleague, Lord Mayor John McNaughton, paid tribute to those years of service. Outside of council, Alderman Geddes was an honorary solicitor to more than 400 organisations. He was also a member of sporting groups, the State Emergency Service and the RAAF Reserve. They formed a guard of honour as the cortege made its way to City Hall. Streets around Newcastle were closed to traffic as the funeral procession wound through the city to Sandgate Cemetery. With the words of his 17-year-old daughter Elizabeth still in the minds of many, a four-gun salute provided a fitting farewell to one of Newcastle's finest citizens.
The 6 are from the number 2 operational conversion unit. As players in this exercise, the pilots are learning how to cope with pressure. And the principle's simple enough.
Multiple aircraft out there trying to bomb targets and get out and get back without being shot down by the enemy.
The enemy, in this case, is the United States Air Force, a team of crack pilots flying the formidable F-15 Eagle. Most of the hard work, though, is done poring over maps. These pilots spend very little time actually in the air.
Last weekend's 2-1 win over Sydney CSC in extra time was a welcome tonic for the Breakers.
What they did show also was that the players have got this will to win. Even though 15 minutes to go we went one down, this fire in the belly is something that I like, and the players have simply accepted that.
Warren Spink is the key up front, and he is working his way into top form with 2 goals in as many outings, but he has plenty of support.
Spinky's getting a little bit more his old self. Jason Polak was by far one of the better players last weekend. Darren Stewart still needs some fitness, but he's certainly holding things together at the back with Craig Moffat and Andy Koska, so things are coming together.
Mark Tangent Prince is coming home well just behind them. Ghost Story is starting to rattle home from a long way back, but Tangent Prince is coming after Unspoken Word in the final stages of the race, and Barcara is starting to fly home. Unspoken Word still the leader from Tangent Prince and Ghost Story. Unspoken Word won the Gadsden Rema.
33-1, 12-1 and 9-4 in favourite. And one of the real glamour events of the Victorian Spring Carnival was the Louis Vuitton McKinnon Stakes, with many of Tuesday's Melbourne Cup hopefuls on show, all except Let's Elope, who was scratched. And what a run by the winner.
On any other day, the Becolban vines grow undisturbed in silence. But today, the hills were alive with the sound of about 8,000 people flocked from as far away as Queensland and Victoria to be part of the Jazz at the Winery concert at Rothbury Estate. Some shimmied and swayed, others took a more laid-back approach, while many swallowed the golden jazz with some Hunter Red. The concert attracted such well-knowns as Sue Cruikshank, Don Burrows and Galapagos Duck. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The occasion was the Newcastle World Vision International Club Luncheon. This is one group of people who don't sit down to a meal without believing they've done their best to put food on other people's plates, provide shelter or at least hope to the helpless. Guest speaker was Jewel Trainer. She left a secure job as a speech pathologist to work among the 200,000 institutionalised orphans in the aftermath of the Romanian Revolution. Under a brutal dictatorship, orphans, the handicapped and the aged were bundled into asylums.
Anybody with a disability was not seen as someone who was a valued resource to put any extra skills into.
Though skilled at handling children with learning and language disabilities, Jill began by simply helping the orphans to walk, talk, eat and play. Many had never been lifted from their cots. Most were left to fend for themselves as medical staff were overwhelmed and underfunded. Infected blood supplies pushed infant AIDS cases to the highest in Europe.
It was encouraging and quite surprising to see how quickly the change took place, not only in the children but also in a lot of the staff who were keen to change things.
The slow process of mending shattered young lives is well underway. Jill has revisited Romania to see the positive effects of her work, made possible by fundraising organisations such as World Vision.
To tell them how the money that they donated to World Vision was used, and to give them the opportunity to ask questions and to see and hear somebody who was there and who was there because they supported that appeal and the project, and they're interested enough and care enough to send money for those children.
Prime Minister Paul Keating may have proclaimed that the recession is officially over, but these three Smith family volunteers can tell an entirely different story.
Well, there seems to be more coming in every week for food and clothing and bed linen.
84-year-old Elsa Shillingford has been helping the Smith family for 32 years, and she reckons she's never seen so many people calling for help.
Much more now than there was ever.
In the past year, the number of people the Smith family has assisted has doubled to 1,000 a month. And with December 25th coming up, forget about a white Christmas. Many are wondering if they can afford a Christmas at all.
Quite bad, especially for the young ones. A lot of little kiddies coming in, parents with little kiddies. And if their husbands, fathers have lost their jobs, I think it's going to be quite tough for those little ones.
This year, Scott, we anticipate that we'll be doing twice the business, so to speak, or handling twice the number of hampers, twice the number of clients in comparison to last year.
To help cope with the increased demands, the Smith family has launched its annual Christmas appeal, calling for food, toys, clothes and cash. Donations can be dropped off at the Smith family's Lambton headquarters or at any Commonwealth bank. Scott Bevan, NBN News. If anyone can talk to the animals, it's Ray and Janet Raisbeck. Since 1967, the Raisbecks have been the animals' best friends and caretakers at Newcastle's 182 hectares of sanctuary, Blackbutt Reserve. For 25 years, they've battled vandals, bushfires and council cost-cutting to maintain the city's favourite reserve and care for thousands of orphaned and injured native animals. And tonight their efforts will be acknowledged by the university's Environmental Studies Board.
We feel very honoured indeed that we've just simple folk who've done what we think is a simple job.
A simple job maybe, if you don't mind being gouged by a clinging koala.
They become part of you. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't help but become attached to them, or you must be very cold-blooded, I think.
But by the look of those claws, Janet's not nearly as attached to the animals as they are to her. Scott Bevan, NBN News. Normally thought of as the domain of highbrow work, the region's gallery is delving into a bit of art for laugh's sake.
Alison, aren't art galleries supposed to be serious places?
Well, no, they're not actually, Scott, but that's the reputation that they have, and this exhibition is aiming to break down some of those barriers where people assume they have to be quiet when they come into a gallery.
Furrowed foreheads are off limits at this exhibition of 38 sculptures designed to bring a smile to all creatures great and small. Some of this work is at the cutting edge of art. Others allow the viewer to get inside the artist's head. The exhibition takes its name from the gladioli queen of Australian satire, Dame Edna Everage, alias Barry Humphries.
As he developed in his career as an actor, he also did the same with art, where he was laughing at the Australian typical suburban lifestyle.
And walking style, judging by Humphries' exhibit, titled Siamese Shoes. Dame Edna Regrets will be on show until the end of January. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
They had wheels on their heels. Round and round they went, cramped and cacophonous. There wasn't enough room to fall over, but watch what happened as soon as they got a little space. The only casualty, one dinted dignity. Half a dozen former Australian champions glided side by side with the less illustrious. There were several divisions, including those barely out of roller booties. It was the first time for some of the wheeled whippersnappers. Today they also debuted the inlines, what we would call rollerblades. Carved out of rainforest, the Bonneville course looked in magnificent condition. Today was the regional final of the national tournament known as the Scramble. 31 teams came from 16 golf clubs. Players came from as far as Moree, Narrabri and Foster. Winners today go on to the national title. There, teams will be joined by a selection of pros, including Ian Baker-Finch, Craig Parry and Brett Ogles. The tournament's only in its infancy, but already 19,000 amateur golfers have entered from 230 clubs. The final will be held at the Royal Pines course on the Gold Coast in December. On a steamy Spears Point Park they paraded, done up to the nines and shuffling into lines. It was the annual Lake Macquarie Championships, the first in a season of salutes and high stepping. The calipers came out to see how many feet between feet. Some team leaders were leading just that little bit too early. Wait for it, but it's not all precision and drills.
We have other girls that have done freestyle to the pop song Locomotion and won medals at national titles, so that is where the girls get the opportunity to show off.
And the Lemonairs from the Central Coast did just that, the girls working busily beneath their busbies, while the judges were able to grade in the shade. A dropped prop meant points off, but all the teams have time to perfect the act. The zone and state championships aren't on until after Christmas. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News. Sydney threw a ticker tape parade. They were hailed as heroes. Today, the Steel City said a belated but heartfelt well done. About 2,000 people lined the foreshore for the official welcome home. The record books show that Newcastle's 8 Paralympians bagged 1/3 of Australia's medal tally, 11 gold, 1 silver and 2 bronze. They lunched with Strictly Ballroom star Paul Mercurio, and after that interlude, a cavalcade of capris ferried the 8 athletes up Wharf Road and along the foreshore. No ticker tape, but the chorus of cheers probably made up for it.
From a simple stamp to the seat on a bus, all these products have been thoroughly worked over by graphic and industrial designers.
Design is looking for better ways for everything that is made and exists to be better all the time.
At Newcastle City Hall, the first graduates from the Newcastle University's Graphic and Industrial Design course put their wares on show. Already some of their artwork is gracing advertising catalogues, business cards and stationery. Students are encouraged to think in new, practical and refreshing ways. How about this for a different kind of motorbike? Just about every man-made item has been designed. The TV set, your car, even your kettle. 30 students have graduated from the 4-year course. The display is only on tonight and tomorrow before moving to Sydney.
Donna Espy had left her 6-year-old daughter with the child's grandparents at their home just blocks away from her Taylor Street flat. The 31-year-old returned to her home at about 5:30 yesterday to prepare for a night out with the family. About 45 minutes later, Donna's parents, who'd come to meet her, found the young mother lying on the kitchen floor. She'd been stabbed repeatedly. Her mother ran to the nearby fire station for help. Fireman Greg Egeroff was on duty.
All I did basically was console the grandparents of the daughter, or the parents of the deceased, and just kept them in another room until the paramedics arrived.
Police believe Donna Marie Espy arrived home to meet her killer. Detectives have not found any trace of a forced entry to the flat. Their investigations today have centred on people known to the victim. Among those, her estranged husband, acquaintances and 2 men who share a flat adjoining the property. A neighbour reported seeing a man running from the house just on dusk. A knife believed used in the murder has been recovered for testing, along with the victim's personal effects. Homicide and district detectives have joined forces and will continue to door-knock the neighbourhood into the evening.
Still wish to hear from people who live in the surrounding streets of Taylor Street, Cardiff, where the murder took place.
The exact cause of Donna Espy's death won't be known until a post-mortem is completed later tonight. Andrew Lobb reporting, NBN News.
If buildings could have identity crises, this one would have a chronic case. It was the entertainment centre. It was the Workers' Club. In this latest incarnation, it's the Wharf Road Markets. Today, the finishing touches. On Friday, it's the official opening. Prospective stall holders are clamouring for the 120 spots.
The best way I could describe it is that it's Paddington Markets with food.
Heading the market's marketing, a cartoon character by the name of Ocky. The Wharf Road markets will open on Fridays between noon and 8 p.m. and on weekends from 9 till 4. Meanwhile, the site of the former markets is up for auction. The historic old store building, now obscured by scaffolding and posters, will go under the hammer on November 18th. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
The bandit wearing a black balaclava and dark overalls walked into the Garden City Commonwealth just before 3. He then threatened staff with an automatic handgun.
He's been up to the teller and demanded money. Has been handed an undisclosed sum at this stage. Members of the bank then followed him.
The man escaped on a red and white Yamaha trail bike, turning right into Lexington Parade. He was later sighted heading into bushland off Princeton Avenue, Adamstown Heights. Police searched the region, checking backyards and dead-end streets. Witnesses to the robbery have given police a rough description of the man. He's thought to be in his 20s, 170 centimetres tall, of medium build and with dark hair. Late tonight, the getaway bike was found dumped at Charlestown Square. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It was a day to end all wars. Unfortunately it didn't, but we hope that one day it will.
I think there was 10 young fellows of my age enlisted, and there was 2 came back to Mimai.
Time has thinned the ranks of those who gather in remembrance. It's said that the Great Wars, with all their sacrifices, laid the foundations for the past half-century of relative peace. An achievement not lost on those gathered in Civic Park or at the many other cenotaphs where remembrance services were held.
There are literally millions of people honouring the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month.
Those who witnessed the horrors of war remain alert to the tyrannies of oppression and injustice still haunting modern times. Old soldiers anxious to impart the mantle of courage to younger generations.
We must also remember the things that went wrong and our mistakes, especially the sad neglect of the Aborigines and other selfish and unworthy actions which have marred the development of our national character.
Wreaths were laid along with books, gifts of knowledge to the area's schools.
One day, well, we hope we don't have to remember any wars, do we?
From a distance, this waterway doesn't look too bad, but at times the salt levels here are up to 10 times the safe level for growing crops. At Lochinvar in the Lower Hunter today, Natural Resources Minister Ian Causley met with local farmers to discuss one of the area's greatest environmental problems, too much salt. The farmers wanted immediate action from the government, but the minister was calling for more talk.
I don't think just coming down with legislation to say that you must do this will solve the problem.
Farmers are angry that some mining companies in the Hunter are spilling saline water into the river and heightening salt problems. The farmers have accused the government of going soft on polluters.
Certainly I think that that's something that must be strengthened.
Mr Causley says he'll look into any specific pollution problems, but meanwhile it's up to local groups like the Hunter Valley Catchment Management Trust to fight in the front line against salt. The
group waved placards outside the Dial a Holiday travel agent at Umina, which is reported to have gone into liquidation yesterday. Complaining that they'd been left without accommodation during a trip through Victoria, the group was calling for refunds from the company. Bus contractor Michael Weston also claims the company owes him money.
I've been chasing money off this company for some time. In excess of $13,000 this company owes me.
There was no sign of the travel agent owner, but angry senior citizens were demanding answers.
And we want to know the reason why we've been shuttled around like a lot of geese, and we want to know and want some answers.
A Dial a Holiday agent owner at Woy Woy said his office was separately owned and was not in any danger of closing down. Matthew White, NBN News. They were testing out the track today, organisers preparing for a spectacular show on Saturday night, the Golden Chef Gosford City Solo Championships. More than $50,000, 6 months of work and some 800 tonnes of dirt have been poured into the project, giving the Central Coast a world-class speedway venue. Bikes, sidecars and speed machines of all shapes took to the dirt, the drivers checking the track for holes, organisers checking on noise pollution levels.
Anyone who doesn't have the right muffler, well, they just won't ride.
30 of the country's best riders will contest the 25 event program on Saturday night. 500cc stars Mark Carlson from Queensland, Mick Poole and Newcastle's Chris Watson heading the bill. Matthew White, NBN News.
For all but a few moments of last night's encounter, the Breakers dominated play and could have gone to an early lead, but were denied by some brilliant keeping by George Bahotsis. Around 1,300 fans stared at the setting sun and a sizzling Warren Spink, but again the Breakers went unrewarded. However, Parramatta had to crack, and it was Jason Pollock's shot cleaned up by Rod Brown that did the trick. 1-0 at Oranges, and soon after the resumption, goal number 2, this time to Darren Stewart. Time and time again, the Blue and Red Army descended on the Parramatta line, only to be turned back by solid defence and great keeping. All of a sudden, however, the Eagles decided to attack themselves, and Jerry Gomez pulled one back. Then the unthinkable. In injury time, Gomez was superb, and Mendes made it 2-2. A better performance, however, by the Breakers, but with away goals worth 2 points. It's Parramatta who is in the box seat to advance to the next round of the National Soccer League Cup.
A former Australian youth team member, Peter Hill, began his National Basketball League career with the Newcastle Falcons. He managed to shine for 3 years in a side that rarely tasted victory, before leaving the club in bitter circumstances 2 seasons ago. He joined the powerful Sydney program, but a spate of injuries and some inconsistent form restricted his court time with the Kings. He'll now head north to link with the Rollers, who desperately need an outside shooting specialist to replace the retiring Ron Radcliffe. Hill was cut from the Kings roster following the signing of Ace Illawarra guard Greg Hubbard. Hubbard has agreed to terms for 3 seasons, ending a 6-year association with the Hawks. The financially strapped Illawarra club is now without a coach and could also lose its other starting guard, Doug Overton, who is keen to break into the American NBA.
He's the toy king of Tascott on the Central Coast. For 70 years, Len Davies' life has revolved around toys and wood. And as Len will tell you, all types of wood.
Pinus, radiata, Pinus insignis, American pine, hoop pine, all sorts of pines. Nice and soft to work with.
76-year-old Len started the volunteer group Toys in Wood after his wife died 4 years ago. Out of his grief came a passion for making sick kids happy. These days, Len's toy making is restricted. But he's the man behind the people behind these toys.
He's gone.
They'll be donated to 10 groups of children on the Central Coast and Newcastle, including a batch heading for the John Hunter Hospital. And although he can't wait to see the smile on the kids' faces, there's also another reason why Len can't wait to have the toys taken.
And I'll be happy to see them get out in my living room. They're taking up all the room. There's no room to walk, and I've got to get my walking stick to clear the way.
Matthew White, NBN News.